Coming up on Talking Points, lawmakers expelled from the Tennessee legislature. We will have more on why they were removed and what it can mean for the state's government.
Plus, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is facing criticism from members of Congress. We'll break down his bribery scandal and the potential implications for the Supreme Court.
And many states across the country have passed legislation banning gender-affirming health care for transgender youth. That story and more. Talking Points starts right now. Series of votes sending shockwaves from Tennessee to Washington and around the country. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Ericka Love.
And I'm Jake Morel. Lawmakers in Nashville voted today to reinstate ousted State Representative Justin Jones. It's been less than a week since he was booted from the state's House. Chilekasi Adele joins us in studio now. Chile, was this vote close?
Not at all, Jake and Ericka. This was unanimous, a 36-0 vote to reappoint Democratic Representative Justin Jones of Nashville. This took place around 5:30. Now, the Metro Nashville Council suspended the normal process for appointing a new rep. That process would have involved a special election. Nominations were taken to fill the vacancy. Representative Jones was the council's only nominee. From there, Metro Council voted on whether to send him back to the legislature. They voted to do so, and droves of people were in downtown Nashville showing support for the ousted Jones, with marches spilling into the street after the vote. Jones walked back into the Tennessee state capitol and was again sworn in. Now, let's go back to last week. Jones, along with fellow Democratic Rep Justin Pearson, were expelled from their seats for their roles in a gun control protest at the state capitol. That stemmed from the shooting at the Covenant School that killed 6. Both Jones and Pearson used bullhorns during the demonstrations in question. Last Thursday, protesters packed the Capitol building before the expulsion votes. Emotions ran high both outside and inside the chamber.
Mob assembled to not lynch me, but our democratic process.
It was some black women who watched what the government did to that boy named Jesus. They were witnesses, as you have been witnesses to what is happening in the anti-democratic state of Tennessee. They were witnesses. I've still got hope because I know we are still here and we will never quit.
Lots of emotion indeed. The Republican-controlled House voted 72-25 to expel Jones and 69-26 to expel Pearson. But the woman, who you'll see on your screen, Democratic Rep Gloria Johnson of Knoxville, survived by 1 vote. 65 voted to oust her out of 66 that were needed. Johnson participated in the protest but did not use a bullhorn. Now, as you can see on that graphic we just displayed, Jones and Pearson are black and Johnson is white. Johnson was asked about why her outcome was different than that of her colleagues. She says it may have to do with the fact that she is white. The Tennessee House GOP says race did not factor into last week's proceedings. They believe Jones and Pearson violated House rules, state law, and acted in a selfish manner. Of course, everyone catching wind of what happened over the past week here. President Biden calling the actions taken shocking and without precedent. And let's talk about how rare this is. In Tennessee, only 3 lawmakers have been expelled since the Civil War period. Last year, Democratic State Senator Katrina Robinson was expelled after being convicted on federal fraud charges. In 2016, Republican Rep Jeremy Durham was ousted after allegations of sexual harassment. And in 1980, GOP Representative Robert Fisher was expelled after being convicted of accepting a bribe. So some very rare air here, Ericka and Jake.
Now, Chile, you mentioned President Biden's condemning of these expulsions. Has the administration engaged in any physical outreach since last Thursday?
So President Biden did go on a video call with the Tennessee Three, as many have dubbed them, but Vice President Kamala Harris made a surprise visit last week to Nashville, and she made a speech. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
A democracy says you don't silence the people. You do not stifle the people. You don't turn off their microphones when they are speaking about the importance of life and liberty.
So again, you see a very animated Vice President Kamala Harris there. Important to note, we talk about the racial undertones that many have accused Republicans in Tennessee. This happened at an HBCU, Fisk University. So again, going to show you a lot of what's happened over here over the past week. Guys.
Chilekasi, Adele, thank you. President Biden teased yesterday that he is making a run for re-election in 2024. Biden made his remarks during the annual Easter egg hunt at the White House while speaking to Al Roker. The president said he is running but isn't prepared to announce it at this time. So, Ericka, you know, just like Biden said there, not prepared to officially announce it, but we saw the First Lady tease to it a couple weeks ago. We've seen President Biden himself tease to it several times, as well as this morning. I think it's becoming more and more sure that we're going to see a re-election effort on the Democratic ticket for 2024.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that President Biden, he said it, but he doesn't want to overstep and announce something too early. But what's interesting is that in 2024, he's going to be dealing with completely new issues than he did in 2020. And his biggest priority would have to be bringing forward a unified Democratic Party. Some of those issues obviously being abortion, new policies in Florida on undocumented immigrants, and the dynamic between state legislators ruling in favor or against gun control laws.
Yeah, and Ericka, you mentioned 2020. I think we're going to see something similar here to what we saw with the 2020 Democratic ticket race. We saw people like Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, all of them potential Democratic nominee hopefuls, and I think we're going to see them step out of the race a little bit earlier this time, because I think the Democratic Party is going to do what they did in 2020, which is to consolidate themselves to once again beat Donald Trump, who could be the Republican nominee in 2024 once again.
Certainly so much to keep a track on over the next few months. Thank you. The judicial branch appears to be the next victim in what seems to be the age of political irony, as Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is accused to have violated a law change that Congress members enacted less than a month ago.
The rule shift states that federal justices must disclose gifts and financial contributions they receive. Here to break down the details of these accusations is Talking Points analyst Luke Welch. Luke?
Thanks, Ericka and Jake. Justice Clarence Thomas was on the hot seat over the weekend after ProPublica published an expose article on Thursday about him and his vacation endeavors. Justice Thomas has been accused of accepting millions of dollars worth of travel expenses from billionaire Harlan Crow over the past few decades. Crow is historically an avid donor to the Republican Party, along with some of its notable members. A recent example of Justice Thomas accepting what Crow claims to just be extended hospitality was when Thomas was taken on a trip throughout Indonesia. The trip was estimated to have cost over $500,000. These heavy accusations did not go unnoticed by Justice Thomas, as he responded in a rare statement, saying, he was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable. Crow would release a statement of his own regarding the accusations. He said, Justice Thomas never asked for any of this hospitality. We have never asked about a pending or lower court case, and Justice Thomas has never discussed one, and we have never sought to influence Justice Thomas on any legal or political issue.
Now, Luke, can you talk to us a little bit more about, what any of the public officials have been saying in response to these allegations?
Yeah, there have been some major reactions to these accusations. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took to Twitter on Thursday shortly after the expose was written, and she said, quote, that this is beyond party or partisanship. This degree of corruption is shocking, almost cartoonish. Thomas must be impeached. Barring some dramatic change, this is what the Roberts Court will be known for: rank corruption, erosion of democracy, and the stripping of human rights. Now, Justice Thomas is one of the most conservative justices on the court in terms of voting history, so it's no surprise we see a reaction from such a progressive in AOC. But she's not alone to call him out, as many Jewish public officials have vocalized their dissatisfaction of the relationship between the two, due to Crow having been exposed over the weekend for collecting memorabilia that relates to Nazi officials and as well as Hitler. So there's a lot of negative attention regarding this companionship.
And Luke, what consequences do you think could emerge from these corruption claims, and do you think they'll be as serious as people are calling for?
Well, in order for something as serious as an impeachment like AOC is requesting, I think there would have to be an ethics investigation launched by Chief Justice John Roberts, who is a fellow conservative on the court, to Justice Thomas, and he has yet to make a statement in response to these accusations. So it's unclear whether or not we will get an investigation coming up soon. However, if there was a vote to have an impeachment, it would have to pass a Republican-controlled House. So it's unlikely that we see a change in the Supreme Court makeup anytime soon, which some Democrats would have hoped for.
Talking Points analyst Luke Welch. Coming up after the break, we take a look at the upcoming criminal trial of a former president. 34 felony counts are on the table. Could all of them stick? Stay with us.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones. And hey, I look good with this ones. But no way he's grown that in a week ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The, that one. The itchy ones. The never forgotten ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The started late ones. The absolutely filthy ones. The drawn on ones. The finger ones. The pin ones. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the yeah, why not ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has filed paperwork with the FEC to run for president in 2024 as a Democrat. Kennedy is a descendant of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy, and Kennedy Jr. is known as an environmental lawyer and an anti-vaccine activist. According to his campaign, he will officially announce his candidacy April 19th in Boston.
And Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey has also announced he is running for re-election in 2024. This comes as great news to the Democratic Party, which looks to keep hold of a seat in a pivotal swing state. Casey took to Twitter to say that there is more work to do to make the lives of hardworking Pennsylvanians easier. If Casey is able to come up victorious, it would mark his 4th term in office.
And former President Donald Trump is currently the subject of multiple investigations across the U.S. in Georgia, Washington, and even right here in New York. Trump faces an upcoming criminal trial downstate in New York City after a grand jury last Tuesday.
Our analyst Teagan Brown joins us now. Teagan, this wasn't a quick process that just started last week. It's been going on for years. What can you tell us about this list of charges against Trump?
Ericka and Jake, good evening. We knew during our show last week that Donald Trump became the first former president in the entirety of U.S. history to be criminally indicted. But the day after our show, Trump traveled about 4 hours south of where we are in Syracuse, and he turned himself in. And it isn't just 1 or 2 or 3 charges he's indicted on. It's 34 felony counts, and this all goes back to when the Manhattan District Attorney's Office opened a case back in 2018 after Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen said under oath that the former president and had him arrange hush money payments to not 1 but 2 women. The New York Times published an article on August 23, 2018, where they quoted someone close to the DA's office saying, quote, "On its face, it certainly would be problematic." And now it's almost 5 years later, we are experiencing this foretold and, depending on who you ask, problematic situation. And if you ask the former president himself, he said he didn't commit the crimes listed in this very, very long document.
And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
The former president left New York immediately after the indictment to head back to warmer weather at Mar-a-Lago, where he gave that speech. But clearly, not everyone agrees with Trump and his claim of, quote, the only crime he committed. Alvin Bragg, for instance, the Manhattan district attorney who brought this case forward, says everyone stands equal under law. No amount of money and no amount of power could change that.
Teagan Brown joining us at the desk now. And Teagan, for those who aren't familiar with the criminal justice system and how everything works exactly, what happens now that Trump has been arraigned?
Well, now that Trump has been arraigned, there's a little bit of a timeline that the judge lays out, but that timeline isn't exactly set in stone. The prosecution wants a trial date to be set in January of 2024, whereas the defense team for Trump wants that date pushed to January of 2024. But in December, Trump's lawyers are going to come forward. They're going to try to make different motions, like trying to get these felonies down to misdemeanors or even trying to dismiss this case altogether.
And Teagan, going into this criminal trial, are there any aces the prosecution may try to pull out of their sleeve in terms of evidence or witnesses?
Well, the first one, which is kind of the newest one we found out about, is potentially Stormy Daniels. She said in an interview this week that she would be absolutely willing to testify. Another one would potentially be David Pecker, who also helped with these hush money payments. And of course, as I mentioned, Michael Cohen, the former Trump lawyer, could definitely be one called forward as well.
Teagan Brown, thanks for joining us. Indiana and Idaho passed bills banning gender-affirming care for minors last week. Kansas also passed a bill that bars transgender women and girls from participating in women's sports. Here to discuss these bills is Talking Points analyst Noah Gutfleisch. Noah?
Thank you. This past week, those 3 states signed bills that target trans minors. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb signed the bill on Wednesday, which banned trans youth from receiving medication or surgeries that would help them in transitioning. Similarly, Idaho Governor Brad Little signed a bill that would criminalize gender-affirming care for youth. The Kansas legislature overrode a veto by Governor Laura Kelly that would ban transgender females from participating in women's sports from pre-K to college. Kelly has previously vetoed 2 bills that would also ban transgender females from participating in women's sports. This makes Kansas the 20th state to pass this type of legislation. And 13 states have also banned gender-affirming care for minors, and all of those bills were signed by Republican governors, except for Kentucky, which had been overwritten by the Kentucky legislature last week. Some Democratic-led states, however, are protecting access to gender-affirming care. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed a bill that protects providers from prosecution. These bills have been criticized by pro-LGBT groups like the Trevor Project, which argue that it is all about scoring political points with conservatives, and have used a study from the Sports Medicine Journal that proves that transgender females do not have an athletic advantage over cisgender females, as conservatives have claimed.
And Noah, can you explain to us, why does the Republican Party want to limit the ability for minors to undergo gender-affirming care?
Well, I think it just comes down to who their base is. Their base is made of a lot of evangelical and religious Christians who have generally opposed LGBT rights, trans rights being no exception, as they believe that the gender you assigned at birth is the one that you will always be, and are thus thus maintain that bill in a religious sense.
Noah Gutfleisch, thank you. Coming up on Talking Points, the latest on the biggest security breach the United States has seen in decades. Stick with us.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close field.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch. Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
The Pentagon has opened an investigation on what could be one of the most dangerous intelligence breaches in decades. Classified government documents detailing American national security secrets have surfaced online. Talking Points analyst Gustavo Madero is here to break down what these classified documents contained and its potential consequences.
Thank you, Ericka. The Department of Justice has opened an investigation into the leaks of around 100 U.S. intelligence documents that were posted on social media. Now, these leaks posted on social media, they were posted on different platforms such as Twitter, Telegram, Discord, and 4chan, which tends to be a forum popular with extremists. Now, these documents, which were posted on social media, appear to be authentic and contain information about a wide range of topics, including the U.S. efforts to counter terrorism, military operations in the Middle East, and some of peculiar interest to the public are documents that contain sensitive military information about the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, these documents that talk about the Russia-Ukraine war give us the location of U.S. troops, the types of weapons the Ukrainian army is using, as well as anticipated weapon deliveries for the Ukraine army. Now, for the Russian side, they give us information about Russian casualties and the types of weapons they are using. Yet, the same way we can't trust everything we see online, neither can we with these documents. Due to that, some of these documents have been altered to make Russia appear like they're doing way better than what they actually are. As you can see in these documents, they say that Russia has only suffered around 16 to 17,000 casualties. Yet, in reality, it is estimated that Russians have actually suffered from 200,000 casualties given the war. Now, as was despite U.S. officials verifying the authenticity of some of the documents, other documents appeared. Sorry, I apologize about that. Now, these documents have been considered to be a nightmare for the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, which is an alliance that consists of the United States, Australia, Canada, Netherlands, and the United States, and the United Kingdom, which were all copied and were all sent a copy of these documents.
Now, Gustavo, what do we know about the origin of these leaks, and can you give us a little bit of a timeline?
Yes, well, while we don't know who posted these documents or where they were leaked from, what we do know is that these leaks first appeared on a Minecraft Discord about a month ago. A very unusual yet rather effective way to leak some documents due to that they went unnoticed for about 1 month. Yet, these documents are believed to have been prepared over the winter for General Mark A. Mills, which is the chairman of the Joint Security of Staff, for a briefing about the Russia-Ukraine military.
And Gustavo, what's next after these leaks? What's the outlook of this issue?
Well, the outlook, Jake, is that this makes the United States look like a very bad ally that cannot be safeguarded with important information given the leaks. Due to that, the information that was contained in these documents not only affected the United States, but it affected the United States allies as well. South Korea has condemned this, saying that this is going to potentially really impact the relationship between these two countries. And Israel is another country that also came forward and said that they condemn very highly of this to the United States due to that this was a severe breach of information. Now, Ukraine, despite it being one of the most important affected by this decision, has made its response relatively calm. They have said that they're aware of these leaks and they're going to work with the United States to see how they're going to be able to move forward. Now, something that is of high concern is that Russia might actually use the information on these leaks to actually use it to gain advantage in the war, given that a lot of sensitive information about Ukraine's military was revealed in these documents. Now, Ukraine doesn't seem too worried about that because a lot of it, as it said, could be also misinformation.
Gustavo Madero, thanks for joining us. Coming up on Talking Points, Iran and Saudi Arabia have taken steps towards creating peace in the region. What exact measures are taking place? Coming up after the break.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
We are joined at the desk to discuss with Olivia Maniscalco and Adriana Haydarova how Saudi Arabia and Iran have taken a major step towards improving relations.
The two countries met in Beijing, where they formed several agreements, including reopening embassies in each other's capitals. And Olivia, we'll start with you here. Can you go through the history of the relations between these two countries and why this is such a big deal?
Yeah, so it's a big deal because not only are they reopening embassies and consulates, but they're also resuming flights. They are allowing bilateral visits and diplomatic visits, as well as granting visas to the citizens of either country. And this rift kind of started, or the catalyst was 7 years ago in 2016 when Saudi Arabia carried out a mass execution of nearly 50 people, including a Shiite clerk. As well as there's a war going on in Yemen, which has killed thousands of people, and the countries aren't opposing sides for that. So the hope is that this kind of peace deal could possibly help resolve this issue going on in Yemen, as well as lower the probability of armed conflicts in other places in the region and lead the effort towards peace in the region as a whole.
And Adriana, China hosted the meeting between the two countries. Can you explain what is the significance of this?
Of course, China is a major oil buyer from both of these countries, so it's of course in their best interest to really broker the peace.
And Olivia, what is Iran's motive to de-escalate this situation after decades of conflict?
Yeah, you can start off on this one.
So Iran looks for more ways to be able to sell more oil because currently it's buckled down by U.S. sanctions. So they're trying to find ways to really open up their isolated economy. And that's why this deal is so important to Iran, because they believe that with this peace, they'll be able to set trade ties with Saudi Arabia, which is currently the region's biggest economy.
Yeah, and along with just helping the economy as well, Iran is facing some domestic protests. So the hope is that this deal would help improve their economy, and then also help with diplomatic isolation, and it would just help them as a country as a whole, as well as the meeting being in China. They are hoping that it will help their foreign relations with China, and then as a whole they will just be better off with all their foreign relations in general.
And Olivia, you mentioned diplomatic isolation for Iran. Can you talk just a little bit more about if this has any impact at all on foreign policy with the United States between China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, so some U.S. officials have come out and said that this deal is definitely making Iran look better diplomatically, and it just shows that they are showing a true commitment towards peace in all aspects, and this commitment is definitely helping them in the eyes of other countries with trade and other things.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing to take a look at as we roll towards the 2024 election, because we're seeing China start to pick up more positive relations with a lot of these countries that the U.S. has been heavily invested in, over the past 20 years. So we're going to see that become a talking point, I think especially on the right as they look at Biden's foreign policy and the rising tensions with China.
And Jake, you make a really good point. This is another situation where, like you said, China's coming in as a positive figure to help delegate the issues going on in this region. The United States can take a step back and look at our own domestic issues without having to have a hand in a bunch of foreign policy in the Middle East. Olivia and Adriana, thank you. And that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Ericka Love.
And I'm Jake Morel. Have a great night, Syracuse.